Hold on. All right, we're just about to go into the Grand Museum or the Grand Synagogue here, and I just saw the Piazza. This is beautiful. It's the Piazza Jerusalem. They made this road, and it's on its way, excuse me, to the Grand Mosque, which I'm now going to go. Okay, isn't this nice? Now we're going to go to the Grand Synagogue. Wouldn't you say this was another meaningful experience for us to go to find the Grand Synagogue here in Rome? Good morning, Rifat.
Good morning.
Leka.
Yes.
Aren't we happy to be doing something unique like this? To go to the Grand Synagogue?
No, hold on, honey.
All right, yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Just to cooperate a little.
Good. Boy, two of them. Great.
I've got to talk to them.
All right. Let me just shut this. In front of the building containing the Jewish archives. And here it is, the archival building. And as you can see here, this is the archival storico, the storage of the archives of the community of the Hebrews of Rome. That's basically what that's saying right there. And you can see some of the older books. Shirley and I just had a marvelous meeting. And by the way, yesterday we went to see the museum, and it's over there. But we had a wonderful tour, and I did take photos that will show, maybe in conjunction with this. But Shirley and I just attended a beautiful private meeting with the head of the archives, and that was Claudio, I forget his last name, but we have his card, and his assistant, and her name was Gabriella. And they were nice enough to not only take the time to hear the story of Jewish rescue, the Albanian rescue of Jews in Albania and Kosovo during the Holocaust, but they were also, now I'm trying to get, while I'm speaking, some interesting artifacts here. They were also very interested in my personal story, because I came here to see whether or not I could find out who the person was that gave up a child as an infant to the orphanage of St. Anthony of Padua about the year 1850. It was an Orthodox Jewish woman who apparently had an unwanted pregnancy, and my mother told me before she passed away this wonderful story that that child was given to the St. Anthony of Padua orphanage and was then educated and raised as a Catholic, and he was given the name anemone, the name of a flower, as was every child in that circumstance. They had names of flowers. Anemone is a sea flower, and that anemone is my grandmother's maiden name. My mother's maiden name is Paparella because she married Michaela Paparella from Bari. So now it goes back to 1850 approximately, and while we couldn't find the answer here, yeah, and I just want you to hold this, so I just turn it to me, just hold it like this, and just put me in it. Okay, great. So I'm now going to just continue the story, okay? As long as you see me.
It was
Okay.
Dr. Claudia Procaccia.
Procaccia, yeah. So basically what we did is we made some friends here on the story of Jewish survival. They will try to find some people who might be interested, and who knows, that could be a reason for us to come back and talk to this great congregation about that. But on the story of who my great-great-grandmother was, an Orthodox Jewish woman who gave up this child, the answer is not here. But he was nice enough to give us a hint as to where we should go. And he called them confraternal organizations. And he described two of them, and I guess I gave that back to Shirley. I don't have it with me. If I did, yeah, we'll have to get those out. One is the the headquarters of the St. Anthony of, it didn't say Padua on it, but the St. Anthony's charitable organization that exists here and that may have the archives, because according to this head of the archives here, he said that he thought that in those days, if the Catholic organization took the child, it was only if the Jewish mother converted to Christianity, which was not what my mother told me. But so we need to find out more as we go on here. My feeling is that my mother probably had it correct, that this was not an isolated incident, and it was a policy that if a Jewish person wanted to give up a child rather than have an abortion, and that was the requirement of the Orthodox community, even today, that they would be able to do this in a quiet way with St. Anthony of Padua's synagogue, St. Anthony of Padua's orphanage, and that would be it. I don't remember anyone ever telling me there'd be a requirement for the family to convert to Christianity, and that would be really a harsh requirement. That didn't sound like a charitable act to me. So I think we'll find out more when we go now, because they were nice enough to give us the number, and they even called the St. Antonio organization to prepare them for the fact that Shirley and I are going to be coming over there. Okay? Just left the archives, and I think I said all I'm going to say about that. And now we're passing the Jewish quarter. This was what they called the ghetto. It's no longer a ghetto, but it was where Jews had to live, I guess, until the war. I mean, at the beginning of the 20th century, there are still people living in this building, but not all of them are Jewish. But this is right next to the synagogue, which is around the corner from this building here. We were in it yesterday, and I took some magnificent pictures, but these are the buildings which house the people who were Orthodox Jews, who were part of this congregation for years.
It ended in 1871. It started in the 1600s, but with the liberation of the unification of Italy, they were no longer forced to be in one location.
Oh, they called it the Emancipation when they were freed. So, but look at these beautiful buildings today, probably all. And by the way, there is the synagogue that we entered. We can see it from here. Unfortunately, there's some construction, but let me see if I can get it through here. Yeah, that's the entrance to the great synagogue, and just magnificent on the inside. And I took those pictures, so there's no need to worry about taking more pictures. And then we have the buildings all along here, kind of like a square, 2 blocks are these buildings that house the ghetto, and now they are residences of mainly Jewish people who still pray 3 times a day, because this is an Orthodox synagogue. Muslims pray, I think, 5 times a day. The Orthodox Jews pray 3 times a day, and that's very nice. Shirley and I are now heading to see if we can get a meeting with the people who run St. Antonio orphanage, or the orphanage was part of that organization in the past, to see if we can determine whether or not the story that my mother told me, that her grandfather was an orphan of the St. Anthony of Padua synagogue and was put there by a Jewish woman who had an unwanted pregnancy and was given the name Anemone. Well, here we are. Shirley and I are walking to find a taxi cab to go to the next step here, the San Antonio organization, and just going through a wonderful neighborhood past the Jewish ghetto, and we find a major excavation of Roman ruins. This, I guess, was what the city of Rome was, but in shining white marble and whatnot, and after 2,000 years, it got worn down by soot, the rain, the elements, but we still have the Italians here in Rome preserving everything. If someone tries to build and they stumble across anything that resembles an ancient ruin, they stop and they see whether it's worth preserving. And as you can see, this has been preserved, and they even have a tour of this. We don't know exactly what it was, but you can tell these columns that are around a circular base must have been kind of like a courtyard, or maybe even a small temple for this neighborhood. But it's wonderful, isn't it, Shirley?
Yes, it is.
Just beautiful.
It's very nice.
All right, we're going to keep walking. Well, here we are as we're walking around the block looking for that taxi. We're in a different perspective. You can see that I took that those standing columns around that circular floor, which you can't see too well from here, but look at behind it. There are more columns, and this was probably a major excavation done years ago. We don't know exactly when, but this is kind of an example of what happens in Rome. When you start building, you find these things and they want to then restore as much as they can. And this is just a beautiful example of probably a city block that they prevented from being gentrified. In other words, keeping the residential buildings out which surround it. It's just beautiful. Look at these columns. And the capitals. And there are some of the stones that they just didn't put back, but preserved anyway. And again, beautiful. Well, we got out of the cab here where we saw the Colosseum, and it's being cleaned. I remember years ago when I came with my kids, it was much darker, but they already started cleaning up the outside. And there's one industrialist here that made a $25 million contribution to restore as much as they can, and I think that might attract other money. You can see the crowds down there that are anxious to get in, and many of them have guided tours. We didn't prepare for one, so we're probably not going to be able to do it. This is our last day. Tomorrow we return, but I think it was appropriate to come here to see it, and we're going to go down and see how much that we can see around it at the same time. Shirley, let's see if we can get down the stairs here. Yeah. This is clearly one of the great attractions of Rome, thinking that this monstrous stadium existed during the time of the gladiators, and this is where they had the lions they didn't feed for weeks and weeks to make sure they were good and hungry to eat the Christians that they threw in. An amazing story. Terrible story, but we've come a long way since then in many ways, and still, when you look at TV and you see what's going on in Syria with barrel bombs and chlorine and little kids being killed and hospitals being bombed, barbarity has survived. Let's put it that way, in a different form. And look at across there, that wonderful. We've got so many different things that have been preserved. It's just incredible. And we'll just keep walking. The entrance is where? Oh, I see, to go down. I see. I didn't know that. Okay, well, I guess to go from one level to the other, because we were let off up here, it says that we need to go into this. Let me just at least take that name. I guess we now know where the name Colossus came from. It was a Roman name for big, I guess, and they said when they built this, it was so huge that they would name it the Colosseo. And this is what it is, and we're going now down a path into the Colosseo, so I'm going to close this. Now this is interesting. We walked in, I thought it was going to be a dark tunnel, but here we can go down, and then we have people going up on an escalator. How civilized. And I'm just going to keep this on because it looks like they've decorated it in order to prepare people to go into the Colosseum. You know, it's kind of like Disney World. And look at that, how nice. Going up, they have various pictures of Rome. And beautiful. St. Peter's. By the way, St. Peter's stands so high that no matter where you go, as long as there's a building not in front of you, you can see it. And here's a beautiful ceramic. My God, the ceramics that we saw inside the Vatican Museum from years ago are incredible. So I can see it's right, still being used as an art form. Great. Okay, Shirley. Oh, then we go out here, and sure enough, we're down now at the level I was looking at from up above. And this is, again, I guess if we go around the corner there, it's the open part of the Colosseum. Amazing structure. So big that it survived till today, although the nice white marble that was all on the facade around it is gone. The statues that were in each one of these openings are gone. And even they had, believe it or not, at the top, wooden things that extended so that when the sun hit, the people would be covered by a huge awning. The emperors wanted the people to be comfortable. They wanted them to enjoy the games, keep them out of politics, keep them confused, keep them busy. Something like what's going on right now, you know? Don't let them have too much information, but if we can keep them going with games, and now the games have become Sony, PlayStation, and everything else, we don't need a Coliseum anymore. We've brought it into the home. And I wonder now how many more distractions we're going to have so that the politicians and all the parties, both major parties, can keep getting away with spending money we don't have, borrowing from countries we don't trust, and just passing it on to the next generation that has no vote. But they're going to have to pay the debt. And that's what I've been saying in America. But you can imagine there must have been a similar thing going on in Rome 2,000 years ago, because the emperor used this to keep the people out of politics, off the streets, no protests, and made them very happy. So they were content. They just sat there all day. And the sun was beating down on them like it's beating down on us right now. So what happened was they just invented a big awning they put across, you know, halfway that blocked the sun. Incredible.
I don't think it's realistic.
Okay, well, we're just walking, and we're going to just walk through here. Shirley, why don't we keep walking and see what we come across? Because I think there's some wonderful things. There's a wonderful gate. Could that be Hadrian's Gate by any chance? It almost looks like we're going to Greenwich Village. But that was modeled after the Brandenburg Gate, I think. And maybe everything was modeled after this gate. Because we saw something like that in Berlin when we were there, right? Look at that wonderful arch and gate. And that's probably was done to memorialize the fact that the Roman army came back loaded with loot. And that may have been the time they looted Jerusalem, the burning of the Second Temple, 70 AD, that brought so much melted gold and silver, it created prosperity for years and years. It's even written that no interest had to be charged anymore on loans. Look at that. And now you see all the holes? That's where they anchored the marble that was outside this, so it was gleaming white. Isn't that unbelievable? Obviously, they restored this corner, so people would not be able, people would be able to go in and it wouldn't collapse.
Why don't we go up to the arch
Yes.
first and go under it for a while?
Yeah. And look at the beautiful hill over here. Again, with another arch in between those two trees. And here is partial restoration, looking up the hill. Wow. And here's a bunch of columns. And that looks like another part, a section of the city that was, Lord knows what, but it looked like a prominent part of ancient Rome. But this gate, just looking at the friezes, you can tell the story that they were looking to tell. And it was like the Egyptians. The pharaohs always made sure they were memorialized in their great battles against the Persians, the Babylonians, by putting together, you know, a depiction of the army returning, and even with slaves. In fact, we even saw this in the Aztec culture. When they conquered, they brought back slaves and loot, and they prepared something that was a marble depiction of the event. Look at this. Look at this beautiful wall. Wow. I mean, I hesitate to go and try to interpret, but there's probably a book, and one day we'll have to get it.
Well, if we go down there may
Yeah.
be a plaque.
Yeah, let's
with
see if there is a
information.
plaque there.
So
That's beautiful.
Let's see.
Ah, someone's getting married here, right in the Roman square.
They already did. And
Yeah.
having a wedding.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, that was an English thank you, but they do look like Italians. Look at this. Oh, look, Shirley, how they built part of the. They rebuilt.
They're rebuilding. They're in the
Part of
process
the-
now. The
Wow.
the government of Rome has
So it stopped.
contributed the
When I
money.
was here last, it stopped right there,
It
and
was
now
in
they're
very
rebuilding
bad-
it.
It was in very bad condition,
Wow.
and Italy finally
Oh my God, this is
started the
it's
process
incredible.
of devoting money. I think
Watch
it's
out for
both
these stones
kind of-
here.
Wow.
This is, believe it or not, basalt stones. Form of volcanic rock that's very hard, and but you got to be careful you don't slip.
I'm well aware, especially after what happened.
And we have to see. I'm looking down so I don't trip here. Well, there you can see there's an army returning right there on the frieze. And
So this very nice gentleman, whoops,
yeah,
help me.
told you.
Help me get
Oh,
here.
very nice. What is the name of this gate? Is this Hadrian's Gate?
Inglés.
This,
Name.
the
El
Porta.
No.
Porto. Hadrian? No. Que noma?
El Arco del Triunfo de Roma.
Oh,
Yeah,
the triumph.
l'Arc
The Arc of Triumph.
En français.
Yeah.
Arc de Triomphe.
Ah,
De-
so this.
Yes, I thought so.
Este es el original, el otro el de París.
Ah.
Es una copia
Yeah,
de
it's a
Cuesta.
copy.
Oh, this is
When I saw it, I was thinking of the L'Arc de Triomphe.
this is can't be a
Paris.
copy, Shirley. Look at this. This is not
Well,
a copy.
yeah, but
the
but-
copy
but-
must be
but-
someplace
but,
else.
No, what I'm thinking is, no, hold on. This is they're not. He didn't say that. What he's saying is that it's a parallel to the construction of the L'Arc de Triomphe en Paris, in Paris.
Oh, I see.
And I don't know which was built first.
Well, this
and I
had
don't
oh,
have
the
enough
Arc of Triumph in
information.
Paris was done for the wars, right? With the
No,
reason.
it's way before that.
Way before that?
Oh, yes.
It was a
ancient
Roman?
too. Well, no, it's in.
Well, Roman control. Rome controlled France too. You know.
Yeah, but I don't know what years. We
That
have
was
to
called
look-
Gaul at those times.
Yeah, but we have to look it up.
I remember when I
See
took
if
my
you
Latin.
Can find up there a date. See if there's a date. It's so high up.
Well, this
See,
is.
this is the only disadvantage of coming here without a
That's
guide.
all right.
and
We'll
everything, but
find
we
a
don't have time
guide,
anyway.
right? But this is wonderful. People are just enjoying themselves, and just to see this magnificent Colosseum being rebuilt. Look at the new arches. So it's going to be now a complete circle again, and I guess they're going to use it for
they're gonna keep-
arts and sports and whatnot when, you know, it's fully
They're
doing
restoration
renovated.
work.
Hey, Shirley. All right, Shirley, we got off those slippery stones there. Thank God. I mean,
Right,
that is
so
like
now-
ice, even without the rain on them.
Exactly.
And it's amazing.
I know.
And now you
so
can
now
see
we're
how
going to go to our next meeting.
you can see now the security here is excellent.
Of course.
Cops, policemen all over, and there's a guy with a major weapon just looking out, and they're very vigilant because, you know, as much as they have good security at the airports, all that's needed is one terrorist, one jerk slipping through can cause havoc.
Yeah, but remember I told
Yeah.
you, Italy is not in the same position
Yeah,
as some other cultures because
Yeah.
they have not
yeah.
been discriminatory against Catholics, and they have not been involved in advancing any wars in the Middle East. So Italy is not a target.
And they're bringing in
Now,
more
can it
refugees than
happen?
anybody else when you think about
Yes,
it.
that's another thing. So
Yeah.
along with Greece and
Well, you know what? We're not going to be able to tour the inside, but we'll save that for another time. And I think in about a year or two, it's going to be even better with this thing fully restored. Okay, well, we're going back now after we took all those beautiful
yes,
photos. But thank God we have an escalator.
the Colosseum is over there to the right.
Okay, there it is. And now we can not only go up the escalator, we can see all these wonderful photos of St. Peter's. Isn't this nice? Beautiful. Yes. All restorations, and St. Peter's again. What a wonderful trip we had there. There it is. Okay, I'm going to get off before I trip. And now we go around, and we should be able to get a taxi. And the circle comes around, and here we were before taking the Colosseum, but we didn't see those new additions from up here. So that was great that we went down to witness the beginning of what's going to be one of the most incredible restorations in the world. A structure that's lasted 2,000 years that they're now trying to make even more usable by finishing it so that they can have major exhibitions, I would think, entertainment, concerts. You can imagine at night with the lights that they're going to put in this thing, focusing on the middle. It'll be incredible.